Commander of the Army, past commanders, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. During the next 30 minutes or so, I will be elaborating to you on LTT, which is a vast subject by itself. Due to time constraint, I will not go into the details of the history, but I will come out with some important facts, how the evolution took place with the LTT and so on. I am honored and glad that I got this opportunity to address a gathering like this, and I wish to disclose some important and interesting facts which affected positively and negatively on national security of Sri Lanka in terms of LTT. Some of these have not been disclosed by me in any of the briefings or even gatherings thus far. The origin of the LTT can be traced way back to 1972 when Velupille Prabhakaran formed Tamil New Tigers called TNT. At a time, many other Tamil youth groups also took to arms against the government of Sri Lanka. Since then, the LTT determined to become the sole representative of Tamils and stubbornly persisted with its terrorist tactics, demanding a separate Tamil Eelam, a monoethnic state for the Tamil that would cover 29% of the landmass and 60% of the coastal belt of Sri Lanka. The nearly 3 decades of long military conflict has claimed more than 75,000 lives and destroyed key infrastructure facilities, bringing far-reaching consequences to the political, economic and social stability of the nation. Looking at LTT activities since early 80s, it is apparent that the LTT had been working on a set agenda in which priority was given to expanding its control over the land and also on the population, while running a parallel administration to that of government. LTT sustained their so-called administrative system through the grants made by the Sri Lanka government to those areas. This is the only terrorist group that was fed by the Sri Lankan government. Even their medical facilities, food, everything was supplied by the government, whatever sent to the general public, forcibly taken by the terrorists for their sustenance. And not only that, the government doctors were taken to run LTT hospitals and also to treat LTT injured cadres in government hospitals in the north and east. They also ran a police force and a judicial system. In pursuance of these aims, on one hand, the LTT had been engaged in bringing pressure on the government through every possible means to accede its demands, and on the other, strengthening its military capabilities, simultaneously claiming all those who it saw as an obstacle to the mainstream of objectives. The strategy came This is to be achieved by any means, either politically or militarily. This was made clear by the LTT motto, "The thirst of the Tamil tigers is the Tamil Eelam." The so-called Heroes' Day speeches of Prabhakaran, which was an annual event, proved this. Despite the atrocities committed by the LTT and its stated objectives, Sri Lankan government were willing to negotiate with LTT for the sake of ending and suffering to all people caused by the protracted conflict, but not aware of the true picture of the LTT at that time, the Sri Lankan government that existed during that period. Each attempt proved that LTT was insincere and inflexible. Starting from All-Party Conference in 1984 to Norwegian Facilitative Forces in 2002, as shown on the screen. Out of this, the most significant are the peace accord signed in 1987 and 2002 ceasefire agreement. In the Norwegian facilitated peace process, there were five instances where the peace talks took place, and at the final one, LTT didn't go and they refused to turn up at the table. In 1987 peace attempt is significant as Indo-Lanka Peace Accord, which brought in IPKF, was signed at a time when Sri Lankan security forces were at the verge of capturing LTT's stronghold in Jaffna Peninsula, Vadamarachi, and its leadership in Vadamarachi. I think this is the third time that Prabhakaran escaped either death or captured alive. The Sri Lankan government had to give in to the Indian pressure, thus creating conditions for the LTT to live another day. Security forces has to discontinue operations due to Indian pressure. In fact, Mr. J.R. Javadana, the president of that time, succumbed to Indian pressure. Due to time constraint, I do not wish to explain what happened during the IPKF period. However, the IPKF itself had to fight with the LTTE, thus sacrificing 1,138 men and nearly 2,800 men suffered injuries as per IPKF records. The LTT on 24 December 2001 declared unilateral ceasefire of having a recess and many other such reasons as shown on the screen. At that time, there were continuous operations by the security forces, and LTT could not withstand that. And whenever the earlier occasions, whenever the army did some operations, we also, stopped halfway due to some other various reasons. And that gave the LTT to regroup, retrain, and fight again. So a lot of respite periods were extended to LTT, all these operations before. Then the heavy casualties at that time, when they declared unilateral ceasefire on the 24th of December 2001. Then at that time, there were heavy casualties on LTT. Even the treating casualties were also a problem. And reinforcements were difficult because there was no land route for them to transfer from the mainland to from the peninsula to the mainland. Then heavy firepower. This is the time that LTT realized that they need heavy weapons to neutralize if they want to capture Jaffna or achieve its objective. There's no way other than acquiring heavy weapons they could fight with the army. And logistical backing too were a problem. And Khadas who were fighting in the peninsula at that time, there were no meals for them to eat, and they were reluctant to fight, and they wanted to withdraw. Even some of the civilians have been employed to fight with the security forces. Then, of course, we believe that it's a fact that there were certain discussions went on before that particular time that government came into power in 2002, and that there was some secret talks, and also post 9/11 did not give LTT to work freely in their international network. The 2001 unilateral ceasefire paved the way to Norwegian facilitated Memorandum of Understanding signed personally by the Prime Minister and Prabhakaran himself. The MOU brought in the Sri Lankan Monitoring Mission and Observatory Body to monitor the peace process in Sri Lanka. It was very clear that since 2002, the LTT has gradually created a war atmosphere in the north and east areas in the guise of Tamil Rising in order to facilitate its military plans. Rather than peace and enter in the political mainstream, the LTT focused on recruitment, training, reconnaissance, procurement, and enhancing its land, sea, and air capabilities. This had been the practice of the LTT during 3 decades of the conflict, particularly at